Hey guys, it is currently 3:11 in the morning on May 5th, but we're going to go ahead and talk about the progress on edit 4 of Letters from Madman so far. I've been meaning to film this for several days, but my schedule is all kinds of off at the moment, and I just hadn't gotten around to doing it, so there's that. But I guess that's okay, because the only day that I have done any editing on Letters from Madman was April 30th, which is the day that I began edit 4. So I'm going to talk about edit 4 real quick, like what I do during it, before I get into any word counts or plans or anything like that. So, as per usual, I have my little sticky note here of all of the chapters and the title and which edit it is, listed up here. It just says 4th edit. And then when it's done, down here, I'll write the current word count, that this was a normal font edit, how many words changed, and potentially how many changes I made. But so far, and these are all things that I'll be focusing on throughout, I've been replacing the double hyphens with my M dashes because I can't do those on my tablet, so I can only do those on the computer, so I do those during the editing section rather than the writing section. Adding new sentences to clear up character thoughts, character feelings, stuff like that, because the first draft of this book and the rewrite edit and the sequential editing afterwards is very bare bones. There's not a lot of character emotion in it, and I need to fix that, so that's something I'm heavily focusing on during edit 4. Making sure the setting is clear. I don't know when New York is brought up as the setting, but not anytime soon. I brought it up in chapter 1 this time, but otherwise I don't know when it was initially brought up. I want to make sure that the characters' feelings for each other are brought up very, very soon. It takes a little bit initially for Hilo's distaste of Taki's relationship with their lieutenant to come through, so I wanted to make sure I hit that right on the head right away. Because I don't want it to seem like it's slowly simmering. I want to make sure that it's an established distaste before the book begins, and I want the reader to see that it's established beforehand. And that it's not jealousy. That's important. Hilo has no interest in Taki that way. They're like brothers and a brother and sister. So it's a balance between making sure the reader sees the distaste, making sure the reader knows it's established, but also making sure that it is far from jealousy. He's absolutely not jealous of their relationship. He just thinks it's inappropriate. Bettering sentence flow is something that I always focus on during the 4th edit. It's basically an intense copy edit / line edit, but I would primarily feel more confident calling it a copy edit. So I do sit down and I do fix sentences to make sure that they flow better, to make sure that I've used the best possible sentence that I personally am capable of, or as close to it as I can get, making sure that the lines are better distinctly, not by the fact that they have more words than before, or that they use bigger words than before, but that they are actually genuinely better. There are a lot of people who, when they edit, think that the biggest word is the best, or that the initial sentence they came up with is the best, which sometimes it is, or that the longest sentence with the most commas and maybe a semicolon and maybe also an M dash is the best possible sentence out there to convey feeling and the way the characters feel and the way the world feels, but that's not true. Sometimes those long sentences are great. I use a lot of long sentences. It's generally my style, and when done correctly, it can indeed convey a ton to the reader with a single sentence. But you have to be careful with long sentences, especially if punctuation isn't your strong suit, and especially if keeping long thoughts condensed and concise isn't your strong suit. You can have a long sentence that's still condensed and concise because it's as condensed as you can get it at that length. And that's okay, you can do that. But focusing on making sure that the long sentences are concise and making sure that they're understandable and readable, and that they convey something more than just a long ramble of words, is all important stuff that I do in the 4th edit. And then one of the main things that I also focus on here is inconsistencies. I want to make sure that the plot points are consistent, so make sure that something that was talked about in Chapter 2 isn't completely changed by Chapter 7, and if it is changed, figure out which one is actually meant to be there, and change the early ones to it. Change duplications, repetitiveness, stuff like that. So if in paragraph 2 they get out of the car, I want to make sure in paragraph 4 they don't get out of the car again because they're already out of it. So keeping track of stuff like that is very important, and that's stuff that I work on fixing in edit 4. Those are the main things. You know, it's a long list, but those are the main things I'm focusing on edit 4. It's a very in-depth edit. It's one that I generally take more time on than I take on the notes section, especially for this one, since I'll finally have to fill in those chapters that I skipped, those scenes that I skipped, and I'll finally make some great changes. So now, let's get into the progress that I made on April 30th. That is the day that I started this edit, and it's the only day that I've edited at all. I haven't even been busy. I've just been absolutely exhausted. My thyroid has been messed up for almost an entire month at this point. It was tested on April 7th, and it's been high since then. Presumably, my levothyroxine dose should be upped, but I have to go in for even more blood work and an in-doctor's appointment, an in-office appointment, so that way my doctor can charge me for an in-office and more blood tests, even though I just had an in-office and just had blood tests by the doctor that she recommended I go see. So they just want to charge us more, because doctors are cool. But because of that, and because I've been unwilling to go back in again, because that's BS, let's be honest, my thyroid's been completely messed up, and one of these, you know, things that causes is exhaustion, and it causes a lot of issues with my focus and my attention, and it's messed up my sleep schedule. I have even worse insomnia than I did before, and I can't sleep. My pain is jacked up a million times, through the roof here. This whole entire arm is dead. I can't function this wrist at all without the brace on. I had a shoulder brace on most of yesterday. I've had an elbow brace on most of yesterday. It's only off right now because my elbow was killing me from having the brace on, and my shoulder, I have icy hot on it, so the brace only makes it worse. But because of all of that, I haven't gotten around to editing. I haven't had time for editing, and that sucks because it puts me behind again. But until I go back into the doctor's office, which I'm not willing to do right now because I'm filming this in May, there's still, you know, COVID. There's a lot more cases in the county that I live in right now that have jacked up in the last week and a half, and I don't want to go out in public when I don't have to, and going in for an unnecessary blood test and an unnecessary office visit so that way they can charge me for it is unnecessary. So I'm kind of just dealing with it right now and hoping that things play out. But I don't know when they'll play out. But the only day, again, that I've edited is April 30th, and I edited 2 chapters, and that was 2,600 words, but I did make 64 changes that day, which is what these tallies are. 64 changes in 2 chapters is great. I made like 100 changes in the entirety of edit 3. Making 64 changes in the first 2 chapters shows that I'm paying more attention. It means that I'm actually doing stuff in depth. It means that I'm focused on it, and that is great. I need that. And I'm very happy that things are going that way, which I'm hoping they continue that way when I get around to editing, which hopefully will happen today here on May 5th. Right now, the goal is to finish this by Friday. Initially, it had been set for today, which is a Tuesday, and I don't know that it will be done by Friday, but that's where I'm setting it right now, because if it's finished by Friday, I don't have to change when the other edits happen. But we'll go with the flow, see how things go. My thyroid's kicking my ass, my pain is kicking my ass, my exhaustion is kicking my ass. So we will see where things go from here and determine dates from there. But right now, that is all that I have, and I will see you guys either with a midpoint update or a final update on when I finish this edit eventually. Hey guys, it is currently 6:13 in the morning on Sunday, May 17th, and I just finished edit 4 of Letters from Madman. Again, this is the same video, but edit 4 was the normal edit, so I was just reading through it, no different font, no speech to text, text to speech, none of that. It was just a normal read through with my eyeballs. But I ended up with 45,729 words, which was 4,275 words more than I had last time, and I ended up with 413 changes, which is great in comparison to edit 3, where I made 133. So I made a lot more changes this time. I feel much better about this edit. I feel like I was actually focused on it. I was in the edit every time that I worked on it, and I pushed through. Yesterday I edited 10 chapters in one day, so that way I could finish it today, and I'm very, very proud of this edit. I'm happy with the way that it went, and I feel like I made things a lot better through added scenes and the changes in dialogue and natural speech progression and stuff like that. But I added several scenes and whatnot, and I'll walk you through that in a second. And then I've also got a list here of some of the other stuff I added, and that's where I was keeping track of my tallies for changes. But I added a scene to chapter 14, which is where Hilo actually asks Brooke about photography. That's something they discuss like 7 times in the book, and then never talk to her. They just decide not to. Which, if they only talked about it once and decided not to, it wouldn't be a terrible thing. But it's the fact that it's brought up over and over and over and over again that makes it, you either have to cut all of those scenes or you need to add it. So I added it in chapter 14, which at that point they have only talked about photography once. And then I erased all of the other ones that come after that where they talk about discussing photography with Brooke but never do it. So that way things are less annoying. I added a scene to chapter 24, chapter 25, and then extended one in 26, added one to 27, 28, and 29, added 2 scenes to chapter 32, and the second scene needs to be extended, but I didn't have the fortitude to do that right now. I think hitting it in a few passes will be much better than doing it all at once, because doing it all at once, for this book especially, is just a terrible idea, I've learned. So edit 5 should hopefully take care of that scene entirely. And then some of the other stuff, which I already read to you, I think, the hyphens and M-dashes, N-dashes, new sentences and insights into the character's thought, setting up the New York setting much earlier, Hilo's distaste for Taki's relationship, bettering sentence flow. I corrected chapter 2 inconsistencies about their mail. That's an important one. They received the letters from a madman in their office at the station, but in that same paragraph where it's first introduced, it said something to the effect of, it was pretty rare that they received mail in their office, but it wasn't entirely uncommon. But then every day when they go into their office, from there on out, we see mail in their office, even when it is not from the madman. Which means that needed to be fixed because that makes no sense. If it's rare, they're not going to get mail every single day for a week straight. So I needed to fix that, and I did. Bettering emphasis on certain words to show true emotions, so I think that was mostly italics, because there aren't a ton of italics in this book, even in dialogue. And there were a couple times where if they paused before it, or there was an italics there, or if they stuttered over it or something like that, it would be much stronger than it was without any of those extra flares on the sentences. So I added those in a few places just to really drive the point of the sentence home. Again, the Brooke photo convo things. Fixed an accidental shift to Hilo's point of view in chapter 31. I think chapter 31 in the original book was taken from a chapter in the original book that was in Hilo's point of view, and I didn't notice that I had accidentally flipped to his for like 2 sentences. So I fixed that because it's supposed to be Taki's point of view. I finally have all of the scenes and the chapters written. Again, I need to extend that one in chapter 32, but the scene itself is written. It just needs to be extended. And that's the final note, too, is expand second scene in chapter 32. So I did a lot in Edit 4, and I'm very, very happy with the way Edit 4 went. And my next step here, for me personally, is to send it off to my beta reader. I normally have 2 betas that I stick with pretty regularly. I don't know if I'll send it to both, if I'll just send it to one. Depends on how things go, because I don't have a ton of time to dick around, so I need to get through it relatively quickly. So my next step is to come up with the beta reader questions and send those off to her, as well as converting the book into a PDF and sending that to her so she can read the whole book and then answer the questionnaire. And I'll make a very short video on that, I think, because it's still a step in my process. It's still an important step in my process, and I think talking about it a little bit could help, but I'm not sure that I'm going to film it today, just because it's getting up to the point in the morning where the birds are going to start chirping, and I don't want to subject you to that torture. So that's all I have for Edit 4's video. The sticky note is officially here in its home with the rest of them, and we'll just keep adding to it until this book is done. But again, that's all that I have for the Edit 4 video, my normal read-through edit. If you enjoyed this video, it's always appreciated, and if you'd like to stay updated on my writing, my editing, the gaming videos I upload roughly every Friday, or anything I do on this channel in between, feel free to subscribe. All the links to my authors pages, as well as links to my social media, are in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.